where you belong. Give you strength to carry on. Open your heart, set your mind at ease. Live your life and you'll be free. We're gonna rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising, rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising,
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Toon review for today's first live show. My name is Paul. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. As usual, if you do enjoy today's show, guys, please do hit the thumbs up button. And of course, if you're new and you like what you see, click that bottom right logo and click subscribe. Come to this channel and you'll be welcomed with open arms. It is a fantastic community we have here on the Toon Review, so please do subscribe and also hit that notification bell, which will let you know when we upload any recorded videos or we go live. You can become a member of the Toon Review by hitting the join button just underneath myself. And of course, you can donate to the channel this morning by hitting that $sign at the bottom of the live comments. And that will also guarantee you that you get your comment read straight out as well. So today's show, basically, Dan Ashworth to MUFC. That seems to be picking up a little bit of pace. So we'll start with that. And then, of course, we have Eddie Howe's press conference, which took place this morning ahead of the game at Chelsea tomorrow night. So he's updating us on a few injuries and things like that. So we will bring you what he had to say in that as well. But we'll start off with Dan Ashworth because this has been rumbling on for a while. There was a few people in the chat last night during the review show asking about Dan Ashworth and what the rumours were that are going on with him at the moment. Of course, we got Dan Ashworth from Brighton. Once the takeover happened, it was very obvious. We'd made it plain and simple that we wanted Dan Ashworth to come to Newcastle. His record at Brighton was second to none. He's had a brilliant career of attracting very, very good players who are not necessarily massively known amongst the footballing world. However, Dan Ashworth brought some players to Brighton that were just absolutely fantastic, and it has been a major part in Brighton's rise, and they're certainly reaping the rewards now. Through a lot of the hard work that Dan Ashworth did when he was at the football club. Now he's coming to Newcastle and he's done, the same sort of thing, hasn't he? He's brought players in who are very, very experienced in certain degree, but also inexperienced in others. And Eddie Howe is there to nurture them and bring them on. Now, Sven Botman, for me, was an absolutely fantastic buy. Playing in France. AC Milan were very, very heavily linked to him. And, of course, we know how that transfer saga went. We ended up getting him, and what a signing he's been. He's been responsible for Isak and Anthony Gordon, etc., etc. And I think, he needs to take a lot of credit because these people that are, doing things in the background don't necessarily get the recognition that they actually deserve for what they've done for the football club. When you're working certainly behind the scenes like Dan Ashworth is, like Darren Eales, Peter Silverstone, those type of guys are working very, very hard day in, day out behind the scenes and are doing an incredible job. And have been responsible for Newcastle's rise up the league into the Champions League, etc. So there's not only Eddie Howe. Obviously, Eddie and Jason and the rest of the coaching staff will work with the players, etc. But it's up to these guys to get the players in, get the sponsors in and things like that. So they don't necessarily get the recognition that they deserve from time to time. But when this rumor came around about Dan Ashworth going to Manchester United, it was a bit of a worry, I have to say, because he's so talented, Dan Ashworth, and obviously he's going to be headhunted. But we made the point last night on the show of saying, well, what would what would the pull be with Manchester United at the moment? Yes, it looks like Jim Radcliffe's going to go in there with, and obviously 25%, I think it is, of owning Manchester United, and it looks like he'll be responsible for the footballing side. So, for me, there's no pull at Manchester United. They're a mess. Let's be honest. They are an absolute mess. And Dan Ashworth would be going into a situation that really would be very, very unclear. I don't know what the pull would be with Manchester United compared to Newcastle, and where Newcastle United are going right now. They are on an upwards. They are climbing the stairs to Mount Everest, aren't they? They really are. And Manchester United are plummeting down. There's crap, there's shit, and then there's Manchester United. The Glazers are just, well, rotten to the core. But we've seen that amongst a lot of owners. Of course, we had one ourselves. Let's not forget that. But our worry isn't Manchester United. But I don't like the thought of Manchester United poaching our best staff. But what I did say last night as well is that I think if Dan Ashworth was to go to Manchester United, we would replace him. And we would replace him with somebody else who was very, very capable of doing the job. There is more than one Dan Ashworth in this world. There is more than one person that can go and find star quality players, whether it be for the youth team or the senior team. There is people across Europe, across the world, who can do a very, very similar job to Dan. Now, that's nothing against Dan, and I don't want Dan Ashworth to go to Manchester United because I think he's doing an absolutely incredible job at Newcastle. Now, I'm seeing a lot of comments coming in saying, oh, maybe it's the media are just trying to upset the apple cart with Newcastle United here. But it's actually Jim Radcliffe and Ineos themselves who have been very vocal about bringing Dan Ashworth in, and I'll come on to that in a moment. There's a very, very good report out this morning talking about it and what the plans would be should Dan Ashworth go to Manchester United. But like I say, he's done an incredible job, Dan Ashworth, and me personally, as a fan, I don't want him to go. I just don't want him to go anywhere. I don't want him to touch Manchester United with a barge pole because, I don't like Manchester United getting one up on us on the pitch. I definitely don't want them getting one up on us, with staff as well. But the main crux of it is, and I'll repeat myself again, I don't see what the pull is in Manchester United. Morning, Ian. Hope you're well, buddy. I don't see what the pull is with Manchester United. They are going to have to rebuild at some point, but Dan Ashworth has just started the rebuilding at Newcastle United. Let's be honest. He is a pivotal figure with Newcastle United right now and moving forward for Newcastle United's future. And I just think that, the work that he could do at Newcastle would totally eradicate anything he can do at Manchester United. Simply because of who he'd have to work with at Manchester United. I know, all the reports are saying, "Oh, Jim Radcliffe is there. He'd be working for Jim Radcliffe." But the Glazers own most of it, and the Glazers, nobody can tell me that Jim Radcliffe is going to walk into that club and the Glazers just, stay in the background. It's not going to happen. They're not that type of people. So eventually, Dan Ashworth is going to have to deal with the Glazers at some point if he did go to Manchester United, and I think it's ludicrous. I think he would need some severe questions would need to be asked if Manchester United managed to poach Dan Ashworth away from Newcastle United. Massive questions. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I know, the links are very, very strong this morning. There's a lot of reports out there saying, oh, he's, it's very much that Ineos and Jim Radcliffe want him and they will get him because money talks. Well, money does talk. Of course, money talks. But at the same time, you have to look at Dan Ashworth as a person. Does he want to become a legend at Newcastle United? Does he want to be part of this massive growth of this football club, to become the global brand that everybody wants us to become? Well, Newcastle fans want us to become, obviously. Does he want to be part of something special? Because if we start winning things, this club is going to be special. It's special already in many different ways, but you know what I mean? It's going to be incredibly special. And for Newcastle United, we are going to be challenging, if not way above Manchester United in a few years. If Manchester United stay on this track that they're on at the minute, which is a huge downward spiral. It's a massive spiral towards oblivion at the minute for Manchester United. Yes, they got a draw against Liverpool yesterday, but my God, they were awful. They were awful. Liverpool were poor themselves. But had Liverpool met them on a day where Liverpool were actually on form, they would have hammered them. And Manchester United fans, I know for a fact, are very, very worried. Now, Ian, you made a good point there. Money talks, and we have more money than the scum. Indeed, we do. And I think if we were determined to hold on to Dan Ashworth, then I don't think there's going to be a problem, because we could just turn around to Dan and renegotiate his contract and say, look, Dan, you're a big part of this football club, a huge part, and we don't want you going anywhere. We just do not want you going absolutely anywhere, especially Manchester United. So let's sit down, let's discuss things, and let's make sure that you're a part of this future of the football club, because I just don't see what, if the Saudi, if the chairman flew across and spoke to Dan Ashworth, what do you think he'd say to him? He'd just sit down, go through all the plans, and say, right, this is where we aim to be in 2 to 3 years' time. Do you want to be a part of that? Because I don't see any reason why Dan Ashworth would turn around and say, nah, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to go to Manchester United. I want to be part of, those idiot Americans, the Glazers. I want to work for Glazers and Jim Radcliffe. It's a shit show at Old Trafford. And I think, Dan Ashworth has never once come out into the press and spoke about this. These rumours or reports have definitely come from media as well. But I just want to touch on what Ineos had to say, because this is a report from the Manchester Evening News. Now, obviously, they're going to be a bit biased towards Manchester United, of course, but it's a report by Samuel Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News. And it says, Newcastle United Sporting Director Dan Ashworth is the Ineos Group's prime choice to assume the role at Manchester United, with the Petrochemicals Group also open to retaining football director John Murtaugh. So Murtaugh would probably stay. Now, is that to work under Dan Ashworth? Because it says Ineos still have to have their 25% stake in Manchester United ratified. Regard Ashworth among the best in class for the role and are considering shifting Murtaugh to a more of an administrative role. So there you go. Dan Ashworth would come in. They're hoping to hang on to John Murtaugh. And if he does come in, John Murtaugh loses his job and goes into an admin role. Do you think he's going to be happy with that? Absolutely not. So there's problems already. You can't tell me that somebody who is in that job right now gets moved to an admin role and then Dan Ashworth walks in and everything's rosy in the garden. Is it bollocks? And I think Dan Ashworth would realise that, but I think a lot of us fans are looking at it thinking, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? But on the flip side of that, if Dan Ashworth did want to go, I think, let him. And again, I'm not being harsh on Dan Ashworth here, because I don't know if he actually if he's bothered about Manchester United or not, and whether he's sort of spoke to them or not, I don't know. But if he genuinely wanted to go, then let him go, because Newcastle United should be a place where people want to be, and we shouldn't have to beg people to stay at this football club. So if Dan Ashworth did turn around to Amanda and me, Dad, and say, right, I do want to go to Manchester United. I think it's an interesting plan, and I want to go and work with Jim. Let him go. Simple as that. Because we don't want to fight for people who necessarily have had their heads turned or they don't want to be here. Now, again, this is all hypothetical, because we have no idea what Dan Ashworth himself is thinking, or if he's even bothered about Manchester United. This is all hypothetical. I'm just saying, just like a player. If a player turned around to Eddie Howe and says, I want to leave, then let him go. Because we want people who want to be at this football club, want to stay at this football club, and want to fight for this football club. And Dan Ashworth, to be fair to him, has shown nothing, absolutely nothing, that he wants to leave Newcastle. He's been working very closely with Eddie Howe. He's come out and been very vocal about this upcoming transfer window. He has, certainly for me, not had his head turned in the slightest. He's still bang on interested in staying at Newcastle United, and bang on interested in helping Newcastle United become the magnificent world beaters that we know they're going to be. But it's interesting. We've got an Arsenal fan in here. Says Arsenal fan here, love how self-critical you are. Our delusional fans could take a leaf out of your sensible book rather than everything Arteta craps out is golden bricks. Well, thank you very much. It's again, we welcome opposition fans as long as they, have a respect for, being on a Newcastle United channel and they want to talk about football. Without being, abusive or anything like that. And that is a very good point. That's very nicely said. We're very honest on this channel, to be honest. Pardon the pun, but we are. We will always be honest and say how exactly as it is. We take a lot of flack for that sometimes, but we also take a lot of praise for it as well. Some people don't like how honest we are, but I think the majority of fans would rather have somebody that can watch who is damn honest and will always... yes, Stotty, I realise McGonkers fell over. He's fast asleep at the moment. But it's a bit too early in the morning for McGonk. He'll be back tonight for the show. He's just having a kip. So, yeah, look, if Dan Ashworth wants to go, then I think Newcastle should just let him go. Because, as I say, we don't want anybody who wants to be at the club who, has had this head slightly turned. But for me, Manchester United, again, I think they're entitled. This entitlement creeps in again. I mean, all these reports, they'll bring Dan Ashworth in, they'll do this, they'll do that. How the holy hell do they know? Yes, it's Manchester United, one of the biggest football clubs in the world. Nobody's denying that. But are they one of the biggest football clubs in the world right now? On the playing side of it, absolutely hell no. Absolutely not. And the report goes on to say it is understood Ineos's preference is for Ashworth to oversee the running of the football side, but they have gathered positive feedback on Murtough following a process of due diligence. Now, they're doing all this before they've even got the 25% stake. And for me, that is absolutely mental. Mentioning names of staff that work for other football clubs is just typical of Manchester United, isn't it? It's typical. They just think they can just speak about and do what they want because they are entitled to do so. No matter whether it creates a little bit of tension at different football clubs, they just think they can march along and they're still big enough to mention any names and still have the pulling power to bring in all these players and staff. It's a load of crap. But this has gone on for a long time now with Manchester United. Since they've been on the downward spiral, the playing side has not been great. It's been very poor. However, they still think that they can mention other people's names and that instantly, as soon as Manchester United are linked, bang, we want to go. Well, that's not the case. And I think this will prove it because do I believe Dan Ashworth will go to Manchester United? Do I bollocks? I think he'll stay at Newcastle and he'll stay and be a part of this incredible journey that we're all on as a football club. And there's no doubt in my mind that the new owners will think a lot of Dan Ashworth. That they paid £5 million for him. They're not just going to let Manchester United come up to us and say, right, we want Dan Ashworth. Sod off. Just tell them to sod off. It's delusional for Man United, as usual, to go on about this and expect people just to drop everything and think, oh, it's Manchester United. It's Manchester United. Let's do it. And Bob, you're saying there, when is Dan coming out to rubbish these comments? I can't see him going. It's really, he doesn't have to. Because if there's no interest from Dan Ashworth to go to Manchester United, then just let it be. Dan Ashworth is continuing. He's very, very busy at the moment. We've got a transfer window coming up. He won't be sitting on his ass just dreaming of Manchester United. He'll be helping Eddie and working on the playing side of the staff coming in January. So I just don't think they've got the pulling power, Manchester United, that they think they have anymore. If it was a Manchester City or, somebody like that, or Barcelona, Real Madrid, then maybe you could understand his head being slightly turned. But Manchester United right now, massively in debt, going nowhere, and the risk in bringing Jim Radcliffe in on a 25% stake, it's still a shit show. It's still a shit show at Old Trafford. They've got a lot of work to do to improve that shit show. And I just think they're a bit deluded. Well, a bit. I think a lot. But I just don't see how they can speak about somebody else's staff like that and just thinking, oh, yeah, we'll just go and poach him from Newcastle. Will you bollocks? Bottom line. Absolute nonsense. Anyway, some interesting comments coming in about that. I mean, a lot of you don't see that, he will go. And to be honest, I don't either. I just think Manchester United just think they're a lot bigger than they are now. They're a long way off where they want to be. But, we've seen teams like this in the past when they've had a little bit of success. I mean, Manchester United didn't have a little bit. They had a lot of success under Ferguson. Very, very well run football club back then. They're not anymore. They're not a top 4 side in the Premier League. They're not even top 6 for me. They are lacking on the field and behind the scenes. That is down to the Glazers, but that is not our problem. If Manchester United want Dan Ashworth, I think Newcastle should just give them the finger and move on. But if he did want to go, that's a different kettle of fish. But I cannot see one reason why he would want to go to Manchester United at all. Right, let's have a look what the gaffer had to say today regarding the game at Chelsea. He's had his press conference this morning, of course, and he immediately started on the injuries to Joe Linton and Fabian Schär. He said both players will have scans today, so we will know more. They don't appear to be too bad, but I am reluctant to say too much before we have the scan results back. Very sensible answer from Eddie, because if you remember in the past, he's been guilty of saying a couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there, and it's never worked out like that. And it looks like he's learned from that by just saying, look, they don't appear to be too bad, but I'm not giving a time scale. And I said that last week. I said I don't want any given time scales anymore on injuries. I'd rather just say, look, they're out for an indefinite period of time. We'll let you know when they're on the comeback trail. But it's good news that maybe they don't appear to be too bad, but that's not to say they are. Now with Fabian Schär, of course, we know it's not his hamstring; it's his glute. So that may be a bit better than what Joe Linton's is. But we, as I say, we can't comment on it until the scans come back and then we see what the actual injuries are. But I think it's positive, but it's a pain in the ass talking about injuries again, because it's all we ever bloody talk about these days, isn't it? Just players going down injured and I don't know. But so no news on that ahead of the scans later on today. Now, on Sven Botman's return, he said he's rehabbed really well. So we will have to make a decision on whether we want to start him in the game against Chelsea. There are certain players that lift the team that little bit extra, and he is one of those players. He is a big presence, a big guy, and we missed his presence. I think he's going to start against Chelsea. I really do. I think it's a good game for him to start. Chelsea not exactly firing on all cylinders at the moment, are they? And I think with Sven Botman, we've missed him. That smile when he came on the other day was just absolutely superb. It was great to see him back. He looks fit, ready to go. And boy, do we want him back in the side. And that's nothing against Lascelles. I just think the partnership that Schär and Botman built up over time is second to none. But it is good to know that we have people in the squad who can come in and do a very good job. Lascelles will probably line up alongside Botman tomorrow, because I think Eddie's going to play his strongest team. I believe Eddie wants to get to the final of the Carabao Cup again, and he wants to win it. And I believe that we will see a much stronger team than what we did at Old Trafford. I think there's no doubt about that, because the substitutions the other day when he rested some in the second half gives me the impression that we are, we're going to go for it. And I'm looking forward to it, because Chelsea aren't in form. Chelsea won at the weekend against Sheffield United, a 2-0 win. By all accounts, they weren't very good. And I think we should be a very, very confident going into this game. And of course, don't forget, it is Matchday Live tomorrow night on the Toon Review with me and Billy, bringing you live play-by-play commentary of the game. But very, very positive on Sven. Of course, we were worried because we never heard anything about him, not in the previous press conference either before Fulham. We heard nothing. So for me, it's absolutely fabulous news. It really is. And I'm looking forward to seeing Sven back on the pitch. Now, on the journey in the Carabao Cup, he says the 2 draws we had previously in this cup, they're as difficult as you can get. The beauty of those 2 games we've had has shown we can raise our game against top teams in this competition. We are determined to progress and create more memories. We know how difficult it will be, but we know the prize on offer. Now, that again just reconfirms to me that he's going for this. And rightly so. I can understand, playing in the earlier rounds, especially as we were in the Champions League, etc., that we were going to need the players fit and ready for Champions League, etc. And it was a well, he did perfectly well against Manchester United, didn't he? The changes he made, they all stepped up to the plate, and we won convincingly. And I think that's going to be the case at Chelsea. He is going to play his strongest side tomorrow. It's going to be a totally different one to the one that lined up against Old Trafford, Manchester United. We are going for this cup. Eddie wants to win a cup, and Eddie wants silverware as soon as possible. You know, let's be honest. He's never shied away from the fact that he's a winner. Right? He's never shied away from the fact that he wants to win everything at Newcastle United. And this is an opportunity here, because if we get past Chelsea, it's a 2-leg semi-final. And even if we got Liverpool in the semi-finals, I'd still fancy us. Now, that's not to say that Liverpool are automatically going to go through to the semi-finals. They've got a tough game. And certainly they'll be looking to play a little bit better than they did last night. But they're still in Europe, of course. So we have an opportunity here to go to another final. I truly believe that if we get past Chelsea, we have a massive opportunity to win the Carabao Cup. And, you know, that experience we had back in February was amazing. Apart from the game, you know, the game didn't go our way, fair enough, but the experience for everybody, not just us as fans, but for players as well, was simply magical. The whole day, you know, getting to Wembley on the day and you know, walking around Wembley Way and the fan zone and things like that, and just experiencing the whole thing was incredible. And, you know, me as a fan, you know, I want to see that again. I want to experience it again. I want to experience cup finals. I want to experience winning things. And I don't think there's one Newcastle United fan who doesn't want to go back to the Carabao Cup final and put right what happened in February, because we can. We're a lot stronger this year as well. I know not at the minute with the injuries, but you know what I mean? The squad is stronger. The players, we are playing incredible football, and I think we can do it. I genuinely think we can do it. It's a tough game tomorrow night. Don't get me wrong. Stamford Bridge away, no matter how bad Chelsea are playing, and our away form isn't exactly wonderful right now. But God, I truly believe we can do this and get back to Wembley, which will be an amazing experience, because everybody loved it. Now, on facing Chelsea, he says they are a dangerous opponent for us, a very good team with a very good manager. Both teams will be equally motivated to do well. We will pick a team that will give us the best chance of winning. We desperately want to win. So again, he's just reiterating how much he wants to win. Now, yes, I do believe there will be a few changes in the side tomorrow from what played against Fulham, but it'll definitely be strong enough. And Chelsea, I think what Eddie means by Chelsea being motivated as well is they're having a rotten season, aren't they? They are not going to be challenging for a European place this season. They're mid-table mediocrity. They are not having a great time. And, you know, I agree with what Billy had to say last night. They are completely overrun with players to the point where the manager has no idea what his best 11 is, because he's just got so many players to pick from. Todd Bowley's gone in there with a checkbook and said, right, we'll buy this. And it has a detrimental effect. You look at the way Eddie Howe does his business and says, we're only going to be bringing players in who will strengthen certain areas of the side. You know, Chelsea don't do that. Chelsea just brought a manifesto of players and just said to Poch, there you go. That's what you've got. Work with them. And it's impossible, because it doesn't matter if you've got 11 almost world-class players. You have to get those players playing as a team. And Chelsea don't necessarily do that. Do they have some good players? Absolutely. And I think Cole Palmer is the one that really stands out for me for Chelsea this season. However, you know, they will be motivated tomorrow because they know their chances of Europe are very slim, but there is a way into Europe through the Carabao Cup. And I think that's what Pochettino will be looking at tomorrow. But do I think we've got a better side than them right now? Absolutely. As long as we put this away form right and we go at them. Because I think if we go at Chelsea and give them a real game, Chelsea can't live with us. Doesn't matter if it's at Stamford Bridge. But one thing is, if we take the lead or get a couple of goals, Chelsea's fans will soon turn on the players. And it will create a toxic atmosphere for them. And I think we can go on and win the game, 2 or 3. But yeah, it's just my opinion. I mean, he may go and put a lot of reserve team players out tomorrow. He may even go with the side that beat Manchester United in a way. But I don't think he will. I think he's so close now to getting to another final. He will change his. He will go with his strongest. Now, on Alexander Isak missing at the weekend, he said, Alex has a problem with his groin. He had a scan last week. It's not a big problem. It is minor, probably more fatigue than anything. It is enough for us to need to monitor and be careful with him. I don't think he's going to start tomorrow night, judging by what he said there. And you've got to be careful with a groin injury. And you know what? We've mentioned before that Isak's not exactly firing all cylinders at the minute, but this kind of explains why. He hasn't looked good. I think everybody's been pretty much honest with that, and he hasn't looked good. Again, there's a lot of people will say, oh, you're on his back, you're on his back. Yeah, if a player doesn't play well, we're on his back, of course. And we'll say he's not playing very well. However, Isak at full floor, he's untouchable. But I'll stand by that I don't think he's a striker. I'll always stand by that. But what I do think is he's a left forward, and he's a bloody good one. And if we can get him fit and firing him, he's just incredible. I don't believe, I know I've seen a lot of comments saying, oh, Isak should be sold and things like that. I don't subscribe to that. I really don't. I think Isak doesn't need to be sold because he's a quality player. Look, these guys wouldn't have spent 60 million quid on him. I don't think his injury record's the best, but I agree there. He's like a Salah or Mane, plays on the wing, plays on the outside, likes to cut in. We've seen how good Alexander Isak is. He's absolutely superb, and we just need to see a bit more, don't we? But obviously, if he's not fit, that is a problem. But I don't think for 1 second he'll play at Chelsea, which begs the question, is Callum playing again? I mean, this is 3 games straight off the belt for Callum. He looked fit again on Saturday. He looked ready to go. I don't think there was a problem at all. So we'll talk about that tonight, obviously, in the preview. Don't forget, that's on tonight, 7 p.m., the match preview with me, Billy and Alex. And we'll have a look at what Newcastle United's lineup could possibly be. And that was basically all the main points. Certainly, I'm just looking at Twitter here for what he said. But I just think Eddie's very positive. And certainly coming off the win on Saturday, I think it's given the players a new belief. I think it's given them the kick up the arse. I said the other day we needed a good kick up the arse, not in a negative way, but a good one, just a real boost. And we got that on Saturday. There's no doubt in my mind that we got that. The smiles on the faces again, the players hugging each other, smiling. I just think it was all coming together for us on Saturday, and we can take that into the Chelsea game tomorrow night, and certainly to Luton at the weekend, because that isn't going to be an easy game either. But I think if we go down to Chelsea tomorrow, we score a few goals, we get to the semi-finals of the Cup again, they will learn from last year, because we know that, it was a little bit of a distraction, wasn't it, at a certain point, the Carabao Cup. Once we got to the semi-finals, our form started to dip a little bit in the Premier League. But this is what I meant by learning curves for the manager, for the players, for the fans, for everybody. So I don't think it'll happen again, that our form will dip if we can make the Carabao Cup semi-finals and hopefully onto the final. I think we'll be a lot better. We're a lot better positioned than we were last year. We're a lot more experienced than we were last year. So I just think it's going to be brilliant. I do. And, said last week, this second half of the season could be very, very special for Newcastle United. Very, very special. And for me, that's what it's all about. It's about creating memories as a football club. And we as fans, we've already had some fantastic memories from these new owners. Let's go and do it again. Let's win something. Because the city of Newcastle will just be, it'll be a party for at least a week if we win a trophy. And I don't care if it's the Carabao or the FA Cup, whatever it is. I don't care, as long as it's silverware. And we get rid of this little sort of monkey on our back about how long it is since we last won a major trophy. This is our turn. I genuinely believe this is our turn. But we've got to turn the away form around. That's the only worry in the back of my mind about these next 2 games coming up. Obviously, it's Stamford Bridge and Kenilworth Road, is the away form. We need to improve that. But I don't think it takes a lot to improve that, because if we just play the same football, we're fine. Some of the football we play with, when we play that kind of football, we are untouchable. We can beat anybody, in my opinion. So it's very important that we just don't let it become a monkey on our back every time we go out on away from home, and turn around and say, oh, Oh God, we're struggling here, we're struggling away from home. Don't let that become a mental thing, because once it gets in the heads, that's it. You're on a downward slope. But I don't believe that we will let that happen. Now, yeah, I've seen the Jose rumours as well, Roger. I'm not even going that. I mean, there's a lot of press out there who are trying to create a problem for Eddie Howe, saying, Newcastle are looking at Jose to come in as the next manager. Look, if we were losing every game and the new owners decided to change Eddie Howe, would I be happy with Jose coming in? Yes, and I'll tell you why, because of the Bobby Robson thing. I think Newcastle is a club he holds in very dearly because of Bobby Robson. But look, I'm not even going to talk about another manager. Eddie Howe, for me, has got years and years at this football club and is going to win very, very big things at this football club and become a legend. Simple as that. So the press will always keep saying, they do it on TalkSport after every time we lose a game. Oh, Eddie's took us as far as he can. Has he bollocks? Has he bollocks? He's still got so much to do at this football club, and he will do it. I guarantee you he will do it. So don't pay any attention to the crap out there. There's all the in the know channels as well that are talking about different things. Just don't pay any attention to the bollocks. Just, wait till the club announce anything, like signings or anything like that. Yeah, when things come out in reports, we'll talk about players and we'll talk about staff and we'll see what they could bring to the club should they ever sign. But that's not being in the know, guys. We're not telling you, such and such is coming for a medical. Such and such is a deal done. It's a load of shit. I've seen people out there blabbing on saying, Calvin Phillips to Newcastle is a done deal. No, it's not. No, it's not. Juventus are in talking as well. So it's not a done deal at all. But you'll get all these in the knows crawling out from under the woodwork for every transfer window, claiming they know everything, and they don't. So don't pay any attention to it. But what you need to do is stick with the channels you trust. Stick with the channels that you know aren't going to bullshit you. Okay? And that's the only advice I would give. But there you go. That is the latest news from this morning, from Eddie's press conference, and, of course, from the news about Dan Ashworth. If you are watching this on a rerun, of course, don't forget to hit the like button for us. And if you haven't already, those of you in the live chat, please do hit the thumbs up button right now. If you are new to the channel, bottom right-hand corner, click that subscribe button. Or if you're watching later on, click the subscribe button for us. Come and be part of this amazing channel on the Toon Review. We're so close to 26,000, as you can see. And with your help, we will get there sooner rather than later and keep on rising up as a channel. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to everybody for taking part in the chat today. And we'll see you again at 7 o'clock tonight for the match preview. Have a great day, guys. And until then, we will see you soon. Take care.
Come back and check on some breeze.